Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and this is the Gordon 20-in-1 multi-tool from Harbor Freight. Now Gordon seems to be their knife or, I don't know, survival tool line. They have so many different names. I don't know, it might have started out kind of cute. To me it's more confusing. But anyway, this is very similar to a Leatherman Wave with a couple of changes. And I've always been kind of curious about this thing simply because it's $40. And as you know, Leathermans are very expensive. I mean, a Wave on sale you might be able to get for $100. They seem to be going up, and then they have no trouble making more and more expensive multi-tools that go over $200. So what's the point? Now the steel on this is 5CR 15 MOV, which is a pretty popular steel for a lot of Chinese-made knives. Very similar to a 420HC, which is real similar to what Leatherman uses. You kind of have to go up into like the Leatherman Charge titanium to get something else, and then you can get like the S30V super steel, but I think that's only on this blade. But anyway, I thought I'd take a little closer look at this thing and compare it. Now I have done videos on some others, like this is I like this guy. This is the Fine Tool Corp. Or corporation. This is a kind of an old school Wave looking multi-tool, not very good, a little hard to operate. I picked this thing up at Namche Bazaar in Nepal. That's on the route to the Everest Base Camp. And you can buy all kinds of knockoff stuff, but what's funny is I used to be able to open the blade easily, and I haven't opened it in years, and now it's all kind of gunked up, whatever's in there. I think I paid maybe $2 or $3 for this, something like that. Maybe it was $5, I don't know. I'd have to watch my old video. But anyway, I just was more curious about it. But looking at the Gordon, it is very similar to a Wave. There are three waves, basically, first of all. There's a Wave, the original Wave, and that's, I believe, this guy. And then there is the Wave that's been updated, and then the Wave Plus. Now, if you take a look at the different waves, one of the ways you can tell has to do with the blade, another has to do with the pliers. So what they did, probably pliers is going to be the easiest here. This is the first one. It's very, very thin up here compared to the next one. But what Leatherman noticed is that this set of wire cutting teeth here was often the reason people warrantied them, that they'd end up messing up those teeth. So in the latest Wave, the Wave Plus, the teeth are actually interchangeable. You can unscrew those and just get new pieces, so you don't actually have to warranty the whole thing, because they can't really do anything with a new plier head. They just give you a whole new tool. So if you have an old Wave and you don't mind getting rid of it and those are messed up, they'll probably send you a new one. But let's take a closer look at this guy. What we have are the standard, do these while they're open, complement of major blades. We've got the knife blade, you've got kind of what they call a diamond file, and it also has kind of a real fine sawtooth right here. You've got this sort of serrated blade with a gut hook. Now the Wave does not have that, but that is found on the Charge TT that I've got here. The titanium handled one does have that blade. Doesn't say it's any particular super steel though. And then going back to the Gordon here, it has the saw blade, which is very similar to a standard, in some ways I might say too similar to a standard Leatherman. There are subtle differences, but I don't think there's anything terribly magical about the way Leatherman designs there. So when I see something really similar, it's a copy. They didn't really innovate, but there is a little bit of difference I'll get to. Anyway, so they've got the two blades and the two kind of grinding tools, I guess. Anyway, when I close these down, a couple of things. This does have a pocket clip on it. That may or may not come with the Leatherman that you buy. Leatherman's a little stingy with things like that, so if you wanted a pocket clip, you might have to buy the pocket clip separately. Anyway, the look, really similar. Let me I'll get this wave here. This would be the closest. That's the wave, the updated wave without the interchangeable bits. That seems to be what they maybe went after. I find this unique. That little arc there, that half moon, on Leatherman's, that's where they brand it. On this, why would it even be there? And my guess is, like a lot of things, they may have said, here's what we want built. And rather than sending the CAD files or something else, they just send them a Leatherman and say, make one of these. And so it's up to interpretation. There are some subtle differences you can see in the screws. You can see in the base plate here. The Gordon does have a glass breaker. I assume that's a little piece of carbide there. I have not seen that on these Leatherman waves ever. When it comes to the design of the pliers, real similar. You can see as I close those down, you can kind of see the balance. Go to the tips. The Gordon is, I have to say, very well made. And now Leatherman does have a lot of stuff made overseas. In fact, parts made overseas. Maybe it's assembled here. So, you know, China is also where this is made, is fully capable of making anything to whatever standard somebody wants. Maybe there are a few things that they have trouble with, but overall, if somebody wants a really high-end something, they can do it. I did notice that this is a little bit looser than the Leatherman. In fact, comparing it, let's see, which one was that? This guy here. It's this one. Because I'm assuming this is kind of where they got the idea. This is a friction fit, as far as I can tell. Whereas the Gordons, there's a little magnet down there. So, I don't know. I guess I'd rather have a solid friction fit. As far as interchangeability, I think the Leatherman's a little longer, so it doesn't stay in quite as well if you want to use the Leatherman bit set with your Gordon. Oops, was that out of the camera? I was looking at this. Anyway, so I think you could get away with it, but it's not optimal. The Gordon one seems to be a little bit better. Let's take a look at some of the blades. Everything else on the front end seems pretty solid. If we go to the cutting blade, compare that to the wave here, you're looking at a really similar profile there. The Leatherman actually has a less polished spine, which I find kind of interesting. You can see this is the Gordon here. It's fairly rounded. Similar everything else. If it is that, you know, the 5CR15 MOV and it is heat treated properly, which I don't know why it wouldn't be. It's plenty sharp. It should last and be about as strong as this guy here. This does look a little thicker maybe down here. Usually I snap the tips off of them. It's a fine tip. In fact, the early waves, Gen 1, really had a thin front end. Could bend that. So they did beef up the blades. You can see this is a Gen 1 wave. This is a Gen 2. That's a Wave Plus, sorry. Grab my wave here. Regular wave. There you go. I believe it's the same blade on the Plus. But anyway, you can see that they really updated the blade because these were snapping and that created more trouble. So that's why I think that Gordon kind of went after the updated wave. Go to the saw. Close this. These do have kind of liner locks. That's another thing that's kind of interesting is that little icon there. You know, what are the chances? That's just so close. They just made, you know, these subtle little differences. You know, the little arc there, it's a little smoother there. This goes down further. The screws are just a little different. I would imagine that a lot of this is totally interchangeable. Looks like the Leatherman base here is a little thicker than the Gordon. But anyway, going to the saw, that's another thing. The saw here is right here. If I go ahead and try to saw, one of the problems sometimes with these is the flex, but this one, no problem whatsoever. I'll go up against my charge here. It's got a good saw on it. If you look at the thickness of the saws, real similar. The blade profile. Looks like a couple more teeth on the bottom end. This is if you look at the teeth, I think this one the Leatherman felt a little smoother, but this one definitely is a more aggressive feel. You know, I'm looking at how it's kind of kicking around my workpiece versus this one. More like a hacksaw versus a wood cutting saw, coping saw maybe. But anyway, overall, here's the problem. It's $40. Maybe someday on sale. $40, and it's way better than the cheap Leatherman, or the cheap knockoff multi-tools. Do I have a hesitation with this? No. It apparently also carries the Harbor Freight warranty. It comes with a sheath. Here you go. Almost identical to the Leatherman. Seems nobody's safe from Harbor Freight's reach. The glass breaker is a nice addition, and it doesn't seem to get in the way, including this. That's another like $10 or $5 or something if you don't have one. And this does, if you want this thing off, you can pop it off and take it out and pop it loose here. Come on, there you go. I don't know if that's the same. I should check that while I'm onto this. Very similar. Which was which, huh? First world problems when I'm switching around. I think this is the Leatherman one I was going to see. Guess I can do this on my own time. But anyway, so real similar design. $40, yeah, I think it scores. And with the warranty. It's a knockoff. It's Chinese made, not American made, or partially American made. But it's way better than the cheap ones. And if you don't have one, should you get something that you can use hard, or is it for emergencies? And this one easily is both. It's emergency level price, but it is a solid, appears to be a good hard use tool. There's really not a lot to mess up. Most of this has to do with the engineering and the design. And if you basically are borrowing a design, you've got a huge head start. So then it would come down to the metal and the small parts, and overall this just seems to really have nailed it. So I think comes down to country of origin that should guide your decision. And with that, Doc out.